Okay, so picture this. It's 1981, just a seemingly peaceful summer evening in Dayton, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
But, like behind this facade of normalcy, a chilling crime is about to unfold.
Yeah.
A woman named Anna Hilaris, who is known for sort of keeping a watchful eye on the neighborhood,
Right.
becomes the victim of a brutal murder, and she's found strangled in her own garage.
Oh, wow.
What makes this case even more intriguing and kind of frustrating is that all the physical evidence was destroyed
Really?
years ago in like a storage facility mishap.
Oh, geez.
So we're left with a puzzle with like missing pieces.
Yeah.
We're relying on old police reports, newspaper articles, and even like a podcast episode that covered this case to try and piece together what happened to Anna.
So we're stepping back in time here,
Yeah.
relying heavily on the memories and perspectives of those involved. It's like trying to capture smoke, you know what I mean?
Right.
Memories can be distorted, details can be forgotten, and sometimes even intentionally manipulated.
It's true.
No, it's a real challenge.
It really is, and
Yeah.
especially when you consider this happened over 40 years ago.
Right.
So let's just start with like what we know about Anna.
Okay.
Sources describe her as a fiery person, deeply involved in her neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even a little too involved for some people's liking.
Okay.
She was known for calling the police frequently for various disturbances,
Mm-hmm.
earning her a reputation as someone who kept a close watch on everything and everyone.
That vigilance, while perhaps well-intentioned, seems to have created some friction with some of her neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If you were constantly being scrutinized, reported for every little noise or perceived infraction, you might start to resent that person, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. One neighbor even admitted to not speaking to Anna for days because she was upset about his air conditioner being too loud.
Oh, wow.
It makes you wonder if this constant vigilance might have made her a target, perhaps someone who just got fed up with her complaints.
Yeah, it's a valid question. Could this have been a personal vendetta? A disgruntled neighbor finally snapping and deciding to silence her for good?
Well, there's another intriguing detail. Anna was found with a piece of cloth ripped from her own shirt, used as a gag.
Oh.
Nothing was stolen,
Yeah.
and the police ruled out sexual assault, at least initially.
Okay.
So why the gag?
Right.
Was it just a way to keep her quiet during the attack, or was there a more sinister motive behind it?
The gag is a particularly chilling detail.
Yeah.
It suggests a level of premeditation and intention to not just subdue her, but to silence her, perhaps symbolically as well. It adds a layer of complexity to the case that we can't ignore.
Right. And this wasn't a random act of violence.
Yeah.
The podcast episode we have mentions that Anna was found in her garage, which was detached from the house.
Okay.
It was late at night, and she was wearing a nightgown.
So it's unlikely she just wandered out there for no reason.
Yeah.
It suggests she went out there for a specific purpose, maybe to take out the trash check on something, or even confront someone she heard outside.
Exactly. And this is where her personality comes into play again. This was a woman who wasn't afraid to confront people, even in the middle of the night.
Right.
One neighbor even reported seeing her out in her yard at 3 a.m. picking up trash.
Wow. That takes a certain kind of fearlessness, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Or perhaps recklessness.
Yeah.
Could her tendency to confront people, combined with her late-night habits, have made her an easy target for someone looking for an opportunity?
It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's look at the timeline.
Okay.
Anna was last seen alive on the evening of August 6th, 1981. And her body was discovered by her brother, Angelo, on August 9th.
Okay.
Her sister Mary had been out of town and returned to find the house locked up, which wasn't unusual for Anna.
The locked house is interesting because it suggests that Anna might have known her attacker, or at least didn't feel threatened by them initially.
Right.
The podcast host even mentioned that Anna was in the habit of locking her doors even for quick trips outside.
Yeah.
So the locked doors didn't initially raise any red flags for Mary.
Right? It seemed like normal behavior for Anna.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it could be a crucial clue.
Yeah, it could.
So the police naturally investigated Mary and Angelo,
Right.
but quickly ruled them out.
Yes, it's standard procedure to look at the closest relatives first in any investigation. But in this case, there doesn't seem to have been any evidence linking them to the crime.
Okay, so if it wasn't her siblings, we have to look at those neighbors again.
Yeah.
We know Anna had called the police on numerous occasions for various disturbances. And while the sources don't name names, it seems she had a habit of chastising her neighbors.
Let's not forget that behind seemingly ordinary neighborly disputes, a lot can be hidden.
It's true.
Resentments, fester tempers, flare, and sometimes those seemingly minor conflicts can escalate in ways we can't predict.
And this is where it gets even more interesting. During a recent review of the case, a 1963 police report surfaced stating that Anna was struck in the face by a man named Ted Beckner.
Wow, 1963. That's
Yeah.
almost 20 years before her murder. It makes you wonder if there's a connection or if it's just a strange coincidence.
It's incredibly frustrating because the report only mentions that he attracted the complainant's attention before striking her.
Okay.
We don't know what the circumstances were, what their relationship was, or anything else about this Ted Beckner. It's like a tiny window into the past, but without enough context to understand its significance.
Exactly.
And of course, we can't forget the impact of the lost evidence. All the physical evidence from the crime scene was destroyed in 1983 when the roof of the storage facility collapsed.
Oh my gosh.
We're talking about the gag fingernail clippings, biological swabs,
Right.
all potentially crucial pieces of evidence that could have been tested for DNA.
Okay, it could have really changed things.
It's heartbreaking, really, especially for those who were close to Anna and hope for justice. Imagine the possibilities if that evidence was still available. Modern DNA testing could have potentially linked this Ted Beckner to Anna's murder or ruled him out completely.
Absolutely. It highlights the fragility of evidence and how even the most carefully stored items can be lost to unforeseen circumstances.
Right.
And it makes our job of piecing together this puzzle that much harder. And it really does feel like we're being teased, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like the universe is holding this answer right in front of us,
Yeah.
but we just can't quite get to it.
We can't grab it. It's a shame, especially since there's one more piece of this puzzle that we need to consider.
Okay.
The podcast episode mentioned that the same year Anna was murdered, her brother Angelo was investigated for selling stolen property and drugs.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. The timing is certainly suspicious. According to the reports, Angelo had a storage unit where the police found stolen goods and drugs.
Okay.
They suspected he was involved in selling amphetamines.
It makes you wonder if there's a connection between Angelo's illegal activities and Anna's murder. Could he have been involved somehow?
Well, it's a question worth exploring. Was there something going on that Anna might have discovered? Perhaps she knew about Angelo's activities and threatened to expose him.
Or maybe she was trying to protect him, got caught in the crossfire, and became a liability that needed to be silenced.
Those are some dark possibilities.
Yeah.
But we can't rule them out.
Yeah.
However, based on the information we have, the police didn't find any direct link between the two cases. The charges against Angelo were eventually dropped.
So, while it's a tantalizing thread, it seems like the police investigated that angle thoroughly and hit a dead end.
Right.
But even with these potential leads seemingly fading away,
Yeah.
there's still the unsettling question of the gag. Why go to the trouble of silencing her in that specific way?
The gag is almost ritualistic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It feels like more than just a way to keep her quiet during the attack.
Right.
It's as if the killer wanted to make a statement, send a message.
Could it have been a way of saying, we told you to stop complaining and you didn't listen?
Yeah.
A final brutal act of silencing her forever.
That certainly fits with the narrative of her being a nuisance to some in the neighborhood. But then again, if there's a connection to that 1963 incident with Ted Beckner, the gag takes on a whole new meaning.
It could be a signature, a calling card, linking the two events.
A chilling thought, to think that someone might have held a grudge against Anna for almost 2 decades, waiting for the right moment to strike.
It's a long time to hold on to anger and resentment.
Yeah.
And remember, we still don't know anything about Ted Beckner, if he's even still alive or if he ever lived in Dayton.
Right.
It's just a name on a police report, a ghost from the past haunting this investigation.
We're left with more questions than answers, aren't we?
It's frustrating, but that's often the case with cold cases,
Yeah.
especially when crucial evidence is lost. We're forced to rely on fragmented memories, incomplete records, and whispers of what might have been. But let's not give up on finding some semblance of truth in this tangled web.
Absolutely. So if we try to piece together a plausible scenario, even with all these missing pieces, let's go back to what we know. It was late at night. Anna was in her nightgown, and she was in her detached garage. Why was she out there? Right. And given her personality, it's reasonable to assume she might have gone out there to confront someone.
Yeah.
She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, even in the middle of the night. Perhaps she saw something and went to investigate like she had done countless times before.
But this time it ended tragically. What if it was someone she had clashed with before?
Yeah.
Someone who'd grown tired of her constant scrutiny and complaints. Maybe a heated argument turned violent and things spiraled out of control.
It's certainly a possibility. A crime of opportunity fueled by long simmering resentment.
But we can't completely discount the possibility of premeditation, especially with that gag. It feels too calculated, too deliberate.
You're right. The gag does suggest a level of planning, a desire to not just silence her physically, but to make a statement. It's unsettling to say the least.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
With the physical evidence gone and so much time having passed, it feels like we're chasing ghosts.
It's true that the passage of time can make these cases incredibly challenging. Memories fade, witnesses disappear, and the truth becomes increasingly elusive. But even in the absence of concrete answers, we can still try to make sense of the pieces we do have. We can examine the patterns, the connections, and try to understand the context of Anna's life and the events that led to her death.
Perhaps by exploring these possibilities, we can spark someone's memory. Someone out there might have a piece of information, however small or seemingly insignificant, that could shed new light on this case.
Exactly. Sometimes those seemingly random bits of information, those gut feelings that something wasn't right, can be the missing pieces investigators need.
And even if those tips don't lead directly to the killer, they might shed light on some aspect of the case that hasn't been considered.
Right.
It could be a new connection, a different interpretation of the evidence, or even just confirmation of something we already suspect.
It's all about building a more complete picture, even if it's a fragmented one. And remember, Anna's siblings are deceased, leaving no one to advocate for her.
That's heartbreaking. She deserves to have her story told, to have someone fighting for the truth. And maybe, just maybe, someone listening to this deep dive knows something, remembers something, or has a hunch they've been carrying around for years.
That's what we're hoping for. That by revisiting this case, by discussing the details and exploring the possibilities, we might spark someone's memory, ignite a sense of responsibility, and ultimately help bring some closure to this decades-old mystery.
Yeah, it really is a sobering thought. The idea that a life can be cut short, a mystery left unsolved, and decades can pass without any real answers. But as you mentioned, even in the face of these challenges, there's still hope.
Absolutely. Cold cases have been solved before, sometimes years or even decades after the crime occurred. And sometimes it's the smallest, most unexpected details that lead to a breakthrough.
Like that case where they finally identified the killer because of a rare type of soil found on the victim's shoe,
Oh, yeah.
something they couldn't analyze back then.
Right.
But with advancements in forensic science, it became the missing piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. Technology and our understanding of forensics are constantly evolving.
That's true.
What might have seemed insignificant back in 1981 could hold the key to unlocking the truth today.
So what can we do? How do we help bring justice for Anna after all these years?
Well, the podcast episode we listened to highlighted the importance of even the smallest details or rumors.
Right.
It encouraged anyone with any information, no matter how insignificant it may seem, to contact the Dayton Police Department's cold case unit.
So we need to tap into the collective memory of that community. Encourage people to come forward with anything they might remember, even if they dismissed it as irrelevant at the time.
Precisely. Sometimes those seemingly random bits of information, those gut feelings that something wasn't right,
Yeah.
can be the missing pieces investigators need.
And even if those tips don't lead directly to the killer,
Yeah.
they might shed light on some aspect of the case that hasn't been considered.
Mm.
It could be a new connection, a different interpretation of the evidence, or even just confirmation of something we already suspect.
It's all about building a more complete picture, even if it's a fragmented one. And remember, Anna's siblings are deceased, leaving no one to advocate for her.
It's heartbreaking.
Right.
She deserves to have her story told, to have someone fighting for the truth.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, someone listening to this deep dive knows something, remembers something, or has a hunch they've been carrying around for years.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
That by revisiting this case, by discussing the details and exploring the possibilities, we might spark someone's memory, ignite a sense of responsibility, and ultimately help bring some closure to this decades-old mystery.
It's a long shot, but as we've seen time and time again, sometimes that's all it takes. A single phone call, an email, a tip that seems insignificant on its own can be the catalyst for a breakthrough.
And even if it doesn't lead to an arrest,
Right.
sharing information, keeping Anna's story alive, is a form of justice in itself. It's a way of honoring her memory and reminding the world that even the most forgotten cases deserve attention and a chance at resolution.
So let's just take a moment to reflect on what we've learned today. We've delved into the life and death of Anna Hilaris, a woman who, despite her quirks and conflicts, was a part of her community and ultimately became the victim of a senseless crime. We've explored the complexities of a cold case investigation, the frustrations of missing evidence, and the challenges of reconstructing the past.
But we've also seen the power of persistence, the importance of keeping these stories alive, and the hope that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles, the truth can still be found.
If you have any information about the 1981 murder of Anna Hilaris in Dayton, Ohio, please contact the Dayton Police Department's Cold Case Unit. You can find their contact information on our website.
And even if you don't have any direct information, sharing this episode talking about Anna's story can make a difference. Maybe together we can help bring justice for a woman who was silenced far too soon.
Remember, sometimes the smallest details can make the biggest difference. Let's not let Anna be forgotten. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next week with another compelling case, another journey into the heart of a mystery. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and never stop searching for the truth.